Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to TSP TV. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Are DARPA insect drones invading Canada? To find out, stay tuned. So welcome back everybody. Glad you could join us today at the thrift store for today's episode, where we are going to be looking into the prospect that DARPA insect drones may have invaded Canada, and the reason why. Don't know if you can see this, but I found this little individual just the other day, in fact 5 days ago, on my front yard lawn, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's got some very interesting wings and almost what seems to be a metallic head. But we are going to get a little bit of a closer look at this little guy in a second. I'm just going to put him out of sight for the time being, and hopefully cast your minds back to around March or April of this year, in the early days of the COVID global pandemic, and the announcement that murder hornets had invaded the United States and indeed North America. There was reports of them in Portland, Washington, and British Columbia, to name a couple of places that had experienced an infestation of murder hornets, which in fact renamed in a scary way. They were Asian hornets or something. I can't remember what they were exactly called, but they kind of rebranded them and kind of made them a little bit scarier, because we were in the early stages of the pandemic, and the fear mongering was very evident and very prominent almost everywhere you went. They were trying to fear you into accepting the narrative of the scam pandemic, and in that whole fear, they posted a little article in some news reviews about these murder hornets. Now, at the time, I put a video up which very few of you watched, and even sort of sadly enough that a few weeks after the fact, some of you sent me the exact information that I put out in that video, titled Murder Hornets, What is the Deal with That? And we had a little look into the goings on at the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, also known as DARPA, and how much money they had been spending and how much time they had been researching into insect technology. In that they had these tiny little insect drones that have their own little artificial intelligence and are able to navigate buildings in all sorts of different terrains and conditions in order to deliver a very tiny payload. And they also have another project called Insect Allies, into which they are genetically modifying insects and then dispersing them in amongst swarms of other insects that may be a pest to agriculture or industry farmers and stuff like this who grow crops for industry. Insects can, and pests, these can cause, all sorts of problems to producing and maintaining healthy crops. But the purpose of these genetically modified insects was they would be infected with a gene or some kind of pathogen that then would, once they had been dispersed and distributed amongst other insects that don't have this gene, they would then ingest the gene from the genetically modified ones and then sort of kind of wipe themselves out, making them kind of sterile and unable to reproduce. Now, what if they used that exact same technology to deliver pathogens and viruses into other living things like livestock or humans. And maybe what if you had a coronavirus based pathogen that you wanted to deliver in order to sort of maintain that there was a spread and an outbreak of a deadly virus with a 99.99% survival rate that's killing everybody, that requires you to wear masks, lock down businesses, put people into poverty and onto unemployment in order to combat it. But what if you had insect technology and microscopic robots that could indeed deliver payloads of pathogen on a wide scale without any detection? And how would you be able to kind of charge an insect drone with manslaughter or such forth going on? It'd be very, very hard to prove in a court of law otherwise if somebody died of a disease that has been allegedly transmitted by insects, if you see what I'm saying. But anyway, guys, before we have a little closer look at this little guy, let me just show you again, keep you interested. There we are, as close as we can kind of get him. Let's see if you can see his little face there, right up as close as we can. Don't have a very good macro angle here, but this little guy, as I said, I found on my doorstep, and I don't know if you can see this, but dropped him, and actually it did break. But you can kind of see that these wings, although one did just pull off, because I have been pulling it a little bit lately, but you can kind of see that they're a little bit strong. And unfortunately, as I said, we broke part of it off. If I can find that, which I probably will. There we go. Kind of defeated my demonstration there, but it had some rigidity there, and if you've ever tortured or pulled the wings off of an insect normally, it doesn't really take an awful lot to part them. But anyway, as I said, let's look at a little video and maybe an article or two regarding insect drones and the goings on at DARPA before we get a closer look at this guy in the thrift store studio. Alrighty guys, so here is an article from way back in 2018 from Vice, and it was actually originally printed in Science magazine. But anyway, here is the headline: Scientists fear that DARPA's insect allies will attack global food supply with viruses, and it could also potentially attack humans with viruses, as well as other mammals and livestock perhaps. But anyway, the US has been investing in genetic technology to help save its crops, but scientists fear that same technology could be unleashed on our enemies, or in fact on ourselves. So this is by, as I said, Caroline Haskins from back in October of 2018, and there's a picture not too dissimilar to the little guy I found on my front lawn, and that we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at very, very shortly. But anyway, in 2016, the US Department of Defense launched the Insect Allies program, which involves investing $45 million over 4 years to prevent crop failure. Now, bear in mind that that started in 2016, and 4 years later would be 2020, the year we now find ourselves in, and the year I just found this funny little bug on my front yard a few days ago. But anyway, over 4 years to prevent crop failure driven by climate change and pathogens. By using insects to deliver a genetically engineered virus that will improve crop growth by
by altering which genes the plants express. Let that sink in, that these insects are going to deliver a genetically engineered virus to save plants, not to infect humanity or anything like that. Heaven forbid they would spend their money researching technology that could do that. It's just to save the plants, guys. That's what it's all about. Climate change. Greta Thunberg, she's worried about climate change, so probably that's why DARPA's spending $45 million researching this. But anyway, a bunch of scientists are voicing concern over the program's potential as an offensive biological weapon against other countries' food supplies. And again, you could send this into an enemy state, let those insects get in amongst the crops and do their thing, and starve out a nation perhaps. But scientists from the Max Planck Institute of Evolutionary Biology at the University of Freiburg in Germany and France's Université Montpellier requested, I tried to say that French, sorry if that upset or offended anyone, but they requested more transparency and opportunities for public discussion regarding the project and its implications. Easy simplifications could be used to generate new classes of biological weapons, a press release reads. Weapons that could be extremely transmissible to susceptible crop species due to insect dispersion as the means of delivery. And again, you could disperse insects with a virus that could infect almost anything. And you could even tailor-make that virus to target certain genes and genders, perhaps. Anyway, in an email to Motherhood, a DARPA spokesperson rebutted these theses of Science magazine and denied any intent to deploy technology developed through insect allies in an offensive setting. We created insect allies specifically to develop technology that can deliver positive protective traits to plants to help them survive unanticipated and or fast-moving agricultural threats. The spokesman wrote, "We see it as a critical addition to the national security toolkit, part of a layered strategy to preserve the security of the food supply." Interesting. So you always have our best interests at heart and are no more particular than government agencies. They have our best interests at heart more than anyone. That's why they're telling us to wear masks for our own safety, because they know better than us. But anyway, the Insect Ally Program is a collaboration between the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, Environmental Protection Agency, the US Army, and other agencies, according to a DARPA side presentation. So the US Army, they want to help protect our crops too. The goal of Insect Allies is to stably transform multiple mature crop plants in a complex, multi-species plant and insect community with enhanced traits of agricultural interests by mid-2021. Again, interesting words. So here's some pictures and stuff here. Look, there's an insect, there's a plant, and stop and read that if you want. Insects eat plants, and insects transmit the majority of plants' viruses, Blake Beckstein, the DARPA program manager for Insect Allies, said. DARPA plans to harness the power of this natural system by engineering genes inside plant viruses that can be transmitted by insects to confer protective traits to target plants they feed upon. Per the DARPA slide presentation, climate change is the major threat to US agriculture because it exacerbates extreme heat, flooding, and the formation of more powerful storms. The document also points to biological hazards such as foreign funguses, viruses, bacteria, and insects, murder hornets, being introduced to the US agriculture via global commerce. Volcanic and tectonic activity like earthquakes can also threaten the food supply, the presentation status. And this is what a little diagram, I guess, of what they're going to do. Put the virus in these little bugs, send them out, they eat the plants, and thus transmit the pathogen into the plant. This project is no small undertaking. For one, there is risk that bugs won't release the viruses to the plants as intended because the scientists can't control the actions of the bugs once they're released. The project also requires costly microscopic genetic tools. They have scientists that are really like carrying out bionics on insects, guys. This is what you kind of have to bear in mind and realize this isn't science fiction. They're spending fucking $45 million on this shit. According to a public DARPA document, the first phase of Insect Allies was scheduled to conclude in late 2018 and result in the successful delivery of a genetically modified virus to an insect. Phase 2, which is stated to last from late 2018 to early 2020, guys. Early 2020. What happened in early 2020? We had an outbreak of a corona virus-based lost my train of thought there. But phase 2, which is slated to last from late 2018 to early 2020, would involve genetically adjusting the viruses, insects, and plants so that the gene delivery is specialized to thrive in a monoculture. In other words, an agricultural field that focuses on one type of crop. Phase 3 would last from early 2020 to mid-2021 and would theoretically involve observing the project on a larger scale in complex crop environments. In an email to Motherboard, a DARPA spokesman said that the 4 research teams have received allotments of the $45 million funding from the agency as part of Insect Allies, and that all teams have now entered phase 2. The teams include researchers from Penn State, University of Texas, and Ohio. There's some more diagrams. The genetic payload look into the insect, then send the insect out into the wilderness. Does its thing. No contracts through the Insect Allies program have been posted publicly, but Eureka Alert, press release from 2017 claims that the Boyce Thompson Institute, the University of Minnesota, and the University of California, Iowa State received $10 million from the Department of Defense to cultivate a project for Insect Allies. Program Greg Georg Jander, a professor at BTI, said that the project will be used to engineer gene expression in maize and prevent crop failure. And this is some other things, more diagrams that claim to do what they're talking about there, and that is very interesting. That little bubble thing there, look, kind of looks a little bit like a coronavirus symbol. Or certainly what they lead us to believe it looks like if you watch the mainstream media. But anyway, theoretically, as the Science Magazine editorial authors claim, a system that uses insects to help plants succeed could also cause plants to die and be deployed as a weapon against the US adversaries, threatening the food supplies of billions of civilians around the globe. However, there's no evidence yet to suggest that is happening or that Insect Allies has any plans to deploy plant viruses that hurt agriculture. Who's to say if they're deploying human viruses that hurt society? But anyway, that was a little article, as I said, from 2018 with regards to the Insect Allies. And let's have a little look at that little guy before we go and have a closer look at him in the thrift store studio. Alrighty, so let's get a little bit of a closer look at this guy. And as I said, unfortunately, I did pull his wing off while trying to demonstrate to you how rigid his wings were, but that is because I have been pulling it quite a lot. And it seems we have a little piece here
Let me unplug the mic a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is me rustling this. And even now you can kind of see that I'm not exactly being overly brutal with it or trying to, you know, deliberately damage it, but we are kind of manhandling it a little bit. And it seems to be like kind of very, very thin plastic, but it doesn't seem to be crumpling very easy. And again, this little bug has been dead for almost 5 days, if it is indeed a bug. And you know, signs of decay should come in. But as I sort of showed you earlier, if you kind of look at this, like, you know, that isn't falling to pieces that easy. I mean, it does, it's not, you know, unbreakable, but you can kind of see. I don't know if you can see what's inside there. Any signs of robotics inside? It's almost a shame to destroy it because it was so pretty cool. And the other thing I don't want you to notice is you can see and hear that tapping. So the head also was very, very interesting to me. If or not you can see up close, but it almost looked, I'm trying to get the reflection of the light, like it was metallic in itself, kind of almost like a micro screen, but unfortunately the camera's a little bit blurry when we get it in very close. Kind of there, I don't know if you can kind of see that little bit of sort of flashing glimmer on there, almost like it was mirrored. But as I said, guys, I'm not saying that this is a drone, but when you kind of pull it to pieces, as we just have done there, trying to get that in view. I'm not sure if that looks like a biological inside or a metallic inside. Anyway, guys, that was the little insecty thing that I've now inadvertently butchered, and it was dead, guys. I didn't go out of my way to kill this by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't really want to kind of go to the extent of pulling the head off, but even that doesn't want to come off very easily, you know. Like, I'm kind of not exactly tugging at war there, but interesting. Anyway, I'll probably let me find what I'm going to look at. My hands have got very, very sticky now. Actually, let's put it on that side. As I said, I'm not exactly a biologist, and certainly don't know much about robotics either, but that did look very, very interesting to me. And let me see if we can get a close up there. Or not. Anyway, as I said, guys, that was the weird little bug that I found on my, I still like the wing. Kind of feels like plastic. Doesn't feel like an insect wing at all. Like I said, it's almost like a kind of band-aid, very thin band-aid kind of material perhaps. As I said, guys, that was the funny little bug. If or not it was a drone from DARPA, which is probably unlikely, but these things do exist. You never can tell. If or not it was a drone, was it genetically modified perhaps? Who knows? There is something I've noticed a little bit over the summer. Has been a larger than normal amount of these kind of flying insects. Actually, sort of was chatting to my roommate and another tenant in the building about the amount of sort of flying bugs that we've seen this summer, and if or not they had in fact been part of DARPA's insect drones or insect allies, genetically modified creatures designed to wipe out other little insect creatures. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if or not this looked like a normal dragonfly to you, or if it looked a little bit strange and disturbing. I'd appreciate the feedback. Until the next time, guys, this was a Ship Video production. This is TSP TV, and we will see you in another one. Till then, keep it thrifty, and remember, guys, be excellent to each other.